On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Their destination? Beijing, China. This was Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. But the flight never made it to Beijing. No distress signal, no final goodbye. The last anyone heard from the pilots was the chilling, "All is well." Now, over a decade later, what really happened to the plane remains a mystery. Before we begin, rest in peace to the 239 people who lost their lives aboard Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Your story should not be forgotten. As Flight 370 made its way over the South China Sea, air traffic controllers in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam handed the plane over to Subang Air Traffic Control.
At 1:19 a.m., the pilots of Flight 370 responded with a hearty, "Good night, good night." But just 2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the controller noted that the plane had deviated from its normal route. The last thing anyone heard from the cockpit was the pilot's calm voice saying, "All is well."
Then the transmission ended. There was no sign of distress. There was no explanation. Just an ominous silence. When the plane didn't show up in Beijing, search and rescue operations began immediately. But the chances of finding the plane were slim. And this is because the world had never seen a plane just vanish into thin air like that before. There are many theories surrounding the disappearance of Flight 370. Many believe that the pilot intentionally crashed the plane. Some believe the plane was hijacked, while others believe the plane simply ran out of fuel and went down over the Indian Ocean. Now, what's interesting is that the plane was equipped with an automated data link system that would send signals about the plane's location every 15 minutes. However, these systems only worked when the plane was on the ground. So once the plane left the ground, there was no way to track its location. This could be one of the reasons why so many theories have sprung up over the years. Another interesting fact is that the pilots of Flight 370 had extensive experience flying the Boeing 777. In fact, the captain had logged more than 19,000 hours of flight time, and the first officer had logged more than 2,700 hours of flight time. Both pilots were well-trained and well-rested. So why did they suddenly veer off course and ultimately crash? One theory is that the plane was deliberately flown into the ocean by one of the pilots. After all, someone had turned off the autopilot system and manually steered the plane off course. But then again, maybe it was a case of pilot disorientation. The pilots may have become disoriented and flown the plane into the water. This theory seems unlikely, though, given that both pilots were experienced and well-trained. Another theory is that the plane was hijacked. After all, someone had turned off the transponder, which would have alerted authorities to the fact that the plane had been hijacked. However, investigators found no evidence that the plane had been targeted by terrorists. And finally, there's the mechanical failure theory. Perhaps the most likely scenario is that the plane experienced a sudden and catastrophic mechanical failure. If a critical component of the plane's systems failed, it could have caused the plane to crash. Now, this doesn't explain why the pilots didn't issue a mayday call or why they didn't try to turn back, but it does explain why they didn't try to land the plane. After all, if they couldn't control the plane, then landing it would have been impossible. Unfortunately, the only way to know for sure what happened to Flight 370 is to find the wreck. But the search for the wreck has been hampered by a number of factors, not least of which is the vastness of the Indian Ocean. The fact that the plane was flying over the ocean at the time it disappeared means that there was nowhere for the plane to go when it went down. It simply vanished into the sea. To make matters worse, the plane was flying at an altitude of 35,000 feet, which makes it very unlikely that anyone could have survived the crash. In fact, the only way anyone could have survived the crash is if the plane had broken apart in mid-air. And if that had happened, then surely someone would have seen something, right? Well, sadly, this day, nearly 11 years after the plane went missing, we still don't have any definitive answers. All we have are theories. But one thing is for sure, the last words of Flight 370, "All is well," will forever be a chilling reminder of the mystery that continues to surround the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Thank you for watching. What do you think really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? Let me know your thoughts.